In this next panel, let's educate ourselves in this informative panel about living with autism.
Where's the green screen? Okay. Will it repeat the audio from the stream because I don't want that to happen?
If you do that, all you gotta do is lower the mute the world volume in settings. Please keep world volume and it won't repeat.
All right, everybody. So let me introduce myself. My name is Hiru. I go by B in real life. My pronouns are she, her. And for my entire life, I have lived with autism. And as another reminder, please mute all of your mics during the duration of this panel because I don't want any interrupters trying to ruin all the fun. It's repeating the audio. World volume. Okay, I got it. Alrighty. Let's just. Oh shoot! I forgot to. This is a embarrassment. All right. Come on, you can load. Please. There we go. Alrighty.
My money only crashed. That was correct.
Sorry about that. For some reason it crashed and now I'm crouching, so let me fix that. All right. I guess this will have to do. Okay. Sorry about that. That was uncalled for. My game crashed. So, as I was saying, there are some similar things that relate to autism, such as ADHD, Asperger's syndrome, Tourette syndrome, Rett syndrome, and Down syndrome. I will get to those disorders later. And the thing with people with autism is sometimes they can't communicate as well as most people because when they're young, they have difficulty communicating with others, and sometimes they're viewed as outcasts or introverts. But with a little help with therapy, and psychological doctors, we can help them live the best quality of life, best life they can ever live. So now with that out of the way, what is my experience with autism? So let's start from the beginning. I was born a happy and healthy baby back in the mid 2000s. Everything seemed to be fine. Like I was doing baby things like crawling all around and chewing on stuff. But then my parents realized that I wasn't communicating with them. I wasn't looking anybody in the eye. All I would do was focus on whatever I was doing. I would be playing a small game or watching the television. And my parents started to become a little bit concerned. So they brought me to a psychiatrist to figure something out. And it took a few visits, but the psychiatrist officially confirmed that I indeed do have autism. So, what do? Well, they start this fundraiser where our families and friends can help me to get the funds I need to get the therapy and learn to communicate with others. Besides communication, I also had problems with anger issues, and I was rather fidgety. At that point, we didn't know what would set me off in a temper tantrum. So the fundraiser did work, and I was able to go to therapy. But say a few years after that, we decided to create a new fundraiser where we help autistic kids in our local area to get the funds they need to get the therapy. I won't be listing the fundraiser because it includes very sensitive information that I do not wish to share about my personal life. So, what about me? How did I fare in this? Well, I don't remember much when I was 3. But what I do remember is I had a lot of anger issues and temper tantrums at school, and let's just say a lot of kids really didn't like me. At daycare, I would bite everyone and be sent to timeout. And what I thought in my brain at the time was, if I bite someone, I get to go to a quiet place, because another thing about autism is we are very sensitive to lights and sounds, loud sounds. And I was no different. And because I kept on biting my fellow daycare pupils, or no, my fellow daycare, I forgot the word. I was kicked out of the school. So I had to go to another daycare, and then I had to go to a certain school where I had to learn how to communicate. On top of that, of my already going through therapy, I'm not sure. My words are like all over the place today. So an example of my anger issues is I once broke a window at my school because I didn't want to read out loud a book. That's not normal for people without autism, but people like me, that's basically the norm. Because if we don't want to do something, we complain about it and we throw temper tantrums. But like I said, therapy helps. It helps a lot. And because of therapy, I have been better than where I was at when I was 3. I'm able to talk, and I'm able to communicate. I still do have some problems with my staring people in the eye or at their face. Sometimes I just look at a different direction, and I still have stress issues at school, but I'm hoping to fix those in the future. And also with my autism, I get sensitive to certain textures, like My jeans, I absolutely hate to wear jeans. So even on a very cold day, I always wear shorts. I know it's weird, but it's better, like for me at least, it's better than wearing jeans. And honestly, I just hate wearing boys' clothes. And I felt more like a girl. So it took me a while to realize, but last year I realized I was transgender. I came out to a few friends, and then I came out to my parents, and let's just say things have not been the same since then. We still argue a lot about it, and I kind of get depressed about it. So, with that out of the way, let's get to the next part of the panel. What are the pros and cons of autism? Well, autism is not all bad. It can be good. The pros of autism can be we have talents that not many people have. Like we can be savant. And what savant is, we have a higher IQ than other normal people. Personally, I am not a savant, but people who are seem to be excelling in school and go on to be scientists and doctors and great business leaders. Then we have people who are very artistic and creative, like me, where we would create out of this world stories and we put them in video games and books and art and comics. And this has been seen with Tim Burton, because Tim Burton, who is the creator of A Nightmare Before Christmas, has autism. I know, it's crazy, but you can't blame him. He does make some amazing stuff. What are some of the cons? I've already talked about the cons. You have a sensitivity of listening to bright sounds. No. Listening to loud sounds, and you are sensitive to bright lights. So you most of the time retreat yourself into somewhere that is quiet and dark. And I still have problems with that, but I'm trying my best to not worry about it. The other con is people with autism have anger issues. Like I said, I had anger issues myself, but sometimes people with autism, their anger issues is through the roof. Autism is not a switch; it is a spectrum. Some people aren't as emotional as others. Sometimes they have a hard time experiencing empathy or sympathy. And sometimes they're very emotional. So if you say, for example, two people are talking, one's autistic, one's not, and one of them says, "Oh, I lost my video games this weekend because I got grounded," and the autistic person basically starts sobbing because they feel that. So the normal person might be a little bit confused, but like I said, it's a spectrum. If the autistic person was not as emotional, he or she or they or any pronoun, they wouldn't be as emotional and be like, okay. So let's get on to the next slide. How do you treat people with autism? There is this problem I see every day with someone who doesn't have autism talking to someone with autism. And even with people who don't really like, where people don't like are so educated that people don't notice that they do have autism. Once they say they have autism, well, not everybody, but some people are like, oh, I should what I'm saying is, some people in their minds are like, oh, I should treat them like a younger person because they might be sensitive to like more serious things. No, 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 no. We are as much as a person than you are. We are as much as a person that you are, and we deserve the respect of being being treated the same way as two normal people talking together. We want to be with society, not to be treated like outcasts. So if you ever talk to somebody who's autistic, don't treat them like a toddler. Please, please don't, because sometimes that really gets on their nerves, especially me. So just as a reminder, don't treat autistic people like toddlers. Please. Oh. Okay. So where should you help in the cause with autism? There are like probably a million different organizations that help with people with autism. But the one you will most hear about is Autism Speaks. You see them with their walks and their campaigns, and they do all these fundraisers, and they have a lot of clients working for them. And they, out of all the autistic organizations, they earn the most money. So you might be thinking, well, they're doing all this good stuff. They're earning a lot of money. They're very popular. I should donate to them. Really? Would you donate to an ableist company? Would you? Tell me you wouldn't, because Autism Speaks is like the worst organization to donate to when it comes to autism. They have no autistic people in their board of trustees, and they don't even help autistic people at all. They only help the parents of autistic people, and they think autism is more of a disease than an actual disorder, and they think, no, it could be probably cured by a vaccine. Problem is, there's a lot of good things with autism. Autism is not all bad, like I said. So save your money. Don't spend it on this organization, please. So you might be thinking, well, where should I donate now? Well, I do. There is some great organizations that help with kids and people with autism that you must certainly donate to instead of the heck Autism Speaks is. So, what are these organizations? Well, they are the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network and Autistic Women Network. They support the rights of autistic people so they can work in jobs and live a great quality of life. And we even see them with I don't know where I was going with that, but their entire board of trustees, all of them are autistic, every last one of them. And that is why you should donate to them, because they actually make a difference in the world of autism. Not Autism Speaks, but these two organizations do way more than Autism Speaks. So do keep in mind, if you ever consider donating to an organization who actually help autistic people, do it with these organizations, not with Autism Speaks. Speaking of which, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, or sometimes called ASAN, is hosting a gala next weekend. So if you are interested in participating in that or donating or watching their streams, I would highly recommend you do that. All right. Oh, I forgot that. So let's get to the next slide. These are all the similar disorders to autism, which I listed at the beginning of the stream. There is ADHD, which the main symptoms for ADHD is distractions and fidgeting. And ADHD is probably the most common out of all these disorders. Then you have Asperger's syndrome, where the person with Asperger's has a hard time communicating. They are rather emotional, if not anti-emotional, and they keep on talking about a certain topic that they just don't want to stop with. If I was somewhere on this spectrum, it would be between ADHD and Asperger's syndrome. In the middle, we have Tourette's syndrome, where basically a person has a thing called a tic, where they sometimes do an action that they cannot control, like throwing something or clapping their hands or snapping or blinking rapidly, or they say something which sometimes can be swear words. So that does not help Tourette's syndrome people at all. But with enough therapy and psychological help, we can divert all these tics and give people with Tourette's syndrome the best quality of life they can ever have. Over here is Rett syndrome, which is the rarest out of all these symptoms. It only happens in infant girls, and there's only 1,000 reported cases in the United States every year. So for the symptoms of it, for the first 6 months of the infant's life, they seem happy and healthy and normal, but then they start to lose control of their hands, their body, their mind, to the point where it would be mistaken for Down syndrome, but it's not Down syndrome, which I'll get to that in a moment. This can also, psychological help and therapy can also help with this. Then we have Down syndrome, where during the conceiving of the child, an extra chromosome is added to their gene list. That might seem a little helpful in the long run, but trust me, it's not. It never is. So when the baby is born with the extra chromosome, they have a hard time communicating and performing actions, and they have a lot of temper tantrums, and it's no fun. And it's rather unfortunate, but therapy and psychological help does not help a lot with Down syndrome. I've met a few people with Down syndrome, and I feel very, very, very sad for them. They could have had a better life. They could have, which is very, very sad. There is no cure for any of these disorders, which is kind of a good thing, because a world without autism would be much different, which I'll get to that in a moment. So there's been a lot of incidents on social media and the internet where people believe that vaccines cause autism. This is not true. None of it is. There's been tests that disprove this theory. Autism cannot be catched. It's not a disease. It only happens with certain people when they are born. But it is impossible to catch autism. You can catch the flu, you can catch COVID-19, but you cannot catch autism. It's all a conspiracy that's being put through a megaphone on fake news websites on Facebook. There might be different locations where it's being blasted, but the main site is Facebook. So if you ever hear someone saying, "Oh, autism is caused by vaccines," tell them they're wrong. They're dead wrong. Because this kind of stuff is dangerous if you are convinced, because it's hard to get out of this kind of stuff. It's like joining a cult. You are indoctrinated to believe what the cult wants you to believe, and it is hard to get out. Next slide. Here we have some very famous people who have autism. So probably the one of these people is Satoshi Tajiri. He was born with autism, and his favorite thing to do was to catch bugs in his backyard, which, surprisingly enough, gave him the inspiration to create Pokemon. Think of it. Pokemon. Autism created Pokemon. Autism is not all bad. Think about it. If we had a cure for autism, say in the 1800s, Pokemon wouldn't exist. This avatar wouldn't exist. The Pokesona fandom wouldn't exist if it wasn't for autism. So the next person on this list is Temple Grandin, who is probably the most famous person who is known to have autism. Her contribution to this world is her innovations in the farming business, most specifically with cows and processing meat. So if Temple Grandin didn't have autism, we would have had less food on our tables. And that would have caused probably a lot of starvation. But Temple Grandin came up with a way to process more cow meat. And that is such a thing that you cannot deny. That she should be awarded with a Nobel Prize of Innovation, because we wouldn't have as much food as we have today if it wasn't for Temple Grandin. The last person on this list is probably the most famous out of all these people. That is Sir Isaac Newton. It is not confirmed or denied that Sir Isaac Newton has autism, but in the documentation around Sir Isaac Newton's life, he has shown autistic symptoms. He is sensitive to loud noises and bright lights, and he was shown to be rather fidgety. What did Sir Isaac Newton do? You should probably know all of this. He invented the concept of gravity. Gravity is a word we probably use every day, and science would not be the same if autism did not exist. So it might seem strange how Sir Isaac Newton came up with the theory of gravity when an apple fell on his head, but think about it. People with autism can get inspiration from one of the most strangest places. There are some people here that are famous who do have autism, which I was unable to list, like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Alex West of Owl City, and Jerry Seinfeld, who is known for Seinfeld, and also the Bee Movie, if you're if you're interested in doing that kind of stuff. So, what about furries with autism? Well, I would like to introduce you to Puppy Chan. She is, in my humble opinion, she is the most popular furry in the community with autism. She has created a few comics, and she does some amazing art. And she is very, very active today, coming up, like I said, with her own comics, her own stories, in creating probably an amazing creepypasta. But I'll let you do your research. And while you're doing that, give her some love. Please give her some love. She needs it. She lives in a very religious family, and she's probably going to be kicked out in a few weeks because she's turning 18. So please draw her art. Give her, donate money to her to support her. Just give her love. I have, and a lot of people have, but please, I want more people to give this person love. There's some, she is she is one of the most blessed people I have ever known in my life. So once again, please give her love. All right. Now it's the time some people have been waiting for. It's time for some questions. So if anybody has a question, please voice it now.
I'm assuming we can unmute for this.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. I had a question. How did you get into the furry fandom as a person with autism yourself? As I'm also autistic, as many I think in this room are.
So I first heard about the furry fandom back in 2014. And at the time, I would be considered what you guys would call a gamer or a meme or whatever. So I used to hate the furry fandom. But once I found out what the furry fandom really is, I'm like, holy crap, I'm a furry. So when I announced that I was a furry, it was at the time where you had to come out as a furry. I know it was very dark times. It took me a while before I officially got really involved in the furry fandom with making my own characters and making my own stories and my own persona. This is not my persona, but I love Zorora, and the reason why I'm using this model is because of Satoshi Tajiri, who has autism. So I think the person who really brought me into the furry fandom is Bakari Brew. I know she was in this convention a little while ago, but unfortunately I wasn't able to speak to her. But there you go. Yes, it's too cool.
Me?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna ask, what's your opinion on? Well, I got two questions actually. What's your opinion on autism being used as an insult, and how important do you think it is to have representation of autism in the media?
So let me answer your first question. I absolutely hate that places like 4chan are using, I hate this word so much, the R word as an insult or when something does not go their way. The R word is probably the equivalent to the N word, but for people with autism. It is very, very offensive. And if anybody uses it, please stop using it. You can say, that's dumb, that's stupid, but please do not say the R word because it offends me as much as everybody else. And to answer your second question, there has been a lot of representation of autism in the media, most specifically with the character Julia on Sesame Street. She was introduced a few years ago to give kids information with fellow kids with autism because there's a decent population in the country where people have autism, and sometimes people don't understand what autism is. So I love how the media is giving so much representation to people with autism than ever before. Such other examples is, there's the main character of The Good Doctor is autistic, Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory is autistic, and there might be one that I'm missing, but oh well. So I saw a subsequent something. Yes.
I did have a question about, in general, that I've seen with other people that have autism or Asperger's. I've generally seen some kind of like above average kind of like thinking, I guess. Like they usually think a bit deeper, it seems. Am I wrong in
Oh,
that, or?
You're not
I like your
wrong,
point.
'cause someone,
Intelligent is the word you're looking for.
speaking from someone who has autism, I'm on the spectrum. I got mild Asperger's. As someone who's autistic, I have to work in the most powder keg fucking job. Mind my language. I have a great workplace where they're looking out for people who have autism by having a mental health industry, which are keeping up on people who have autism. My somewhat quirks are I am more empathetic for my entire team. I'm a good manager because I am more um, democratic in my nature. I'm more laissez-faire, meaning I'm more for my team more than anyone else. I've not long learned unity throughout the entire pandemic. I have became really creative. I unlocked a few how could I put it? Skills thanks to my autism. So I don't see as
So
many negatives.
So I think what you mean by deep thinking consequential is probably sometimes autistic people don't get jokes and they think, or people with sarcasm. I've had my problems with sarcasm when I was a lot younger, but I'm able to capture it a little bit more often than I used to. Yet, so when it comes to like people being sarcastic, um, people with autism think they're true in their nature. Like saying, let's say somebody said, "Oh, I just got $1 million," and if an autistic person was listening, they would say, "What? I'm I'm like I'm so jealous." That's how I would act if I didn't catch that they were sarcastic. So there you go. So
Yeah,
let's get somebody who hasn't asked a question.
I have one from Twitch chat, if you mind.
Oh, sure.
This is from Hades TV. How do you have uncomfortable conversations with people on the spectrum without making them run or hide or isolate themselves before finishing the conversation?
Repeat that.
Oh, sorry. I can get it to pop up. Okay. How do you have uncomfortable conversations with people on the spectrum without making them run or hide or isolate themselves before finishing the conversation?
Don't. Just don't. It's like trying to talk to somebody who about a fellow trigger they have. Just if they like, they can tell you about this. They can even bring you into some very uncomfortable conversations themselves. But if you're talking to an autistic person, please don't drag them into something uncomfortable. They might not run away, but for me, I get very emotional, I get angry, and just they let us bring you into we sometimes can bring you into uncomfortable conversations, but don't bring us into uncomfortable conversations. So I saw Sensequential has another question.
yeah, it was more so a statement I wanted to say about the whole like my thing that I said earlier, and also what kind of just got answered. I feel like it's more of a thing like of letting them get into the subject by themselves more than like dragging them out to make them as
Yes, you are
comfortable as
completely true
possible.
on that.
Because I think
I got a
myself, I might
question.
have
Oh,
it
sorry.
like some kind of weird
Oh.
form for it.
I got one.
So,
I just need to.
so who?
I'm just looking currently for a
who's-
diagnostic.
Okay, so
but yeah.
who said I got a question?
I got one.
Okay, is your name Andy? Because you're
Candy Guts.
Candy Guts. So Candy Guts,
Yeah.
what's your question?
As someone else who's only figured out that they were autistic for about a year now, what like what advice would you give to people who only just discovered that they're on the spectrum?
So I think the most important piece of advice I would give to somebody is research about their own disability, because that will give you more information of what to do, how to control your anger, and how to stop your fidgeting. I'm gonna say this right now: fidget spinners have a point. They're not some trendy. Oh, look at this knickknack! I'm so trendy. Look at me with my dang fidget spin. There's more of a use than just being trendy. People with autism, ADHD, and Asperger's use fidget spinners to calm them down, because we autistic people in nature are very fidgety. Including myself. I'm actually moving my legs a bit. So I heard someone else have a question.
Me. So,
Uh,
okay, so for me, I was diagnosed with Asperger's when I was 4. One thing that I have struggled with my whole life, and then something I have a problem with, still struggle with really bad, I think it's the worst part of being on the spectrum, is that I feel like I have to have things like go a certain way, or else it's like the end of the world. Like if I have to miss something, it's like the end of the world, and I start like freaking out and having like a panic attack, and I harass people. I know it's wrong to be like that, but like I can't control it. And does anyone else here have that problem? And what's the best way
I
to
have that problem.
Because one thing, and like a good example is if there's like an event I wanted to go to, and like I wanted to go to
It
so
happens
bad,
real time.
I have to make up for it. Like I'm like a person who can't accept disappointment, and that's like my biggest downfall in life. Am I the only one who struggles with that? And like, what do you have any advice for,
personally,
like, how to deal with that?
I personally struggle with that too. So I think what Max over here is talking about is if we have to break away from our routine or our expectations are broken, we are usually very upset. So sometimes what you need to do is, if you have any stress toys around you, definitely use those. And if you have to cry, you have to cry, but don't make it to the point where you start to destroy things, because you got to control yourself somehow. So if you feel like punching a wall, I highly advise that you have a punching dummy or a squeeze ball, so you can deplete that urge. Huh?
Sandbags also help if you.
Yes, sandbags also help as well.
Yeah.
I have experienced it a few times myself since COVID-19 started, and it has not helped me in the wrong.
Hell for me.
Yeah, me too.
Gosh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, and because of the way I've been, like, when things don't start to go away, sometimes I end up harassing people, or like like you mentioned earlier, one of the things of Asperger's syndrome is like constantly saying the same things over and over again, and that's why a lot of local furs don't like me, is because of I let all that get the best of me, and like to this day I still have a very hard time controlling it.
Yeah, you see, I still have a lot of paranoia about.
Do we have another question from the chat?
Oh, sorry.
No, the chat has been quiet at the moment, but I do have a good question. What's your thoughts about medication?
Are you asking me about if there was a vaccine for autism, would I take it?
Oh, no. The general psychological medication that they. Yes.
Personally, for me, I never had to take medication for my autism. The only kind of medication I have to take is for like my depression and anxiety, but I'm not that skilled in those kinds of questions. But I
I might be able
do.
to give some insight. 'Cause
Go ahead.
I'm sorry if I interrupted. I may be able to give some insight because I actually take Zoloft, and it does help keep my outbursts and stuff under control. Like it does help a good bit to stop me from getting extremely worked up. It doesn't work like all the time, but I definitely notice a difference when I take it and when I forget to take it.
I see.
I take a thing called Strattera, which is an Australian ADHD short-term memory loss medication, and like whenever I don't take it, I act out and I get really like fidgety and I can't concentrate on anything. But whenever I take it, I feel like I do a lot better in my classes and my VR chat gaming sessions and stuff like that.
So we're running out of time, so I only have time for one more question. So if anybody has a Riley the Relu, what is your question?
Yes, hi. I have a question. I'm sorry if it sounds a little bit dumb, but the way what is mostly. Do you believe? So I was thinking about the famous people with autism. So I was wondering, this might sound a little ambitious, however, do you believe that's do you believe that we'll get a famous political figure or presence of with autism?
Are you asking me? Do I think that?
Let me rephrase that. Do you believe there will be a president of the United States or another country who has autism?
Oh, that is a great question. Thank you for asking. So,
No problem.
at this point in time, we already have, and that man is Thomas Jefferson. I didn't list him because I was afraid there might be a little bit of controversy because he owned slaves, but he himself did have autism.
That's awesome.
So, but for a progressive person who runs for president with autism, that might not be cards for, say, probably 2 more decades, because if you've seen Trump, he
Oh Lord.
he makes fun of people. Like, he said Joe Biden has dementia, which obviously he does not. That's just a political statement. A political statement to make him look bad. But there's a lot of people like Trump. So it might take a few more years before we start seeing people with people open about their autism and that run for president. So
I honestly hope it happens someday. So yeah, thank you for answering my question.
All right. So
one more
I would like
question
to.
in chat if you're interested.
Oh, sure.
This is a question by Wolf of Darkness. Do you feel as through your anxiety? Do you feel as though your anxiety/depression affects your condition more so than it would without it?
I feel that is a true statement. With anxiety and depression in my system, I sometimes act more fidgety, and I'm sometimes I'm more fidgety. I respond more to loud sounds and bright noise, loud sounds and bright lights. It's like depression is basically the megaphone that brings out my my autism, and I'm trying my absolute best to cope with it. So yeah, that is a good question. So we have reached the end of this panel. I would like to personally thank my family for giving me the support I need to be ready for adult life. And I also give special thanks to my teachers who gave me the love and respect I deserve. Not only as a person with autism, but a trans person, a progressive person, and a person who can think for themselves and not have to think the same thing that their parents think. And I would also like to give a special thanks to my friends that I've met long ago, my friends that I've met this convention. So thank you all for coming to this panel. Eat more chocolate, listen to some more Coldplay, and have a great time the rest of the convention.
Thank you.
Alrighty.